You're listening to a DM podcast.
Welcome to Over the Back Fence. I'm Di Edwards.
I'm Nicola Dale, and we're buddies of nearly 4 decades. And yes, we actually do happen to share a back fence.
We do. We love parties, people, inspirational stories, and honestly, making the most out of life.
So join us as we open our hearts, share our stories, and hear from some of the most inspirational people in the world. And have a laugh along the way.
Yeah.
Enjoy. Hey, Di, guess what? Christmas has come early.
Oh, Christmas in July.
Christmas in July.
Yeah.
We are going to have a huge giveaway of $5,000 worth of product of MOA blinds. So they're the best blinds inside, outside, furnishing. And for our listeners,
What have they got to do to win the prize, though?
Well, to win the prize,
Yeah.
if you DM us on our Instagram and tell us like a really good news story, something that, you know, whether it's kindness to a neighbour, something, or someone who might need some blinds.
What possibly is happening in your life over the back fence?
Yes, you know, share some stories because
That's a good idea for
what are
a
we about?
contest.
Telling stories.
We are. That's what's lucky in our society.
And giving.
$5,000 is a lot.
Yeah,
That's a lot of blinds.
They're an Australian company.
I use them at home. They're brilliant.
Wow.
And you know what, Nicola, you and I have known these guys, 30 years.
Yeah.
And I think for me, when I have a builders or tradies or some kind of house, I like to get referrals.
Yeah.
And these guys, honestly, we trust them.
Yeah, and that's a
So
huge
it
thing
is,
too. So
yeah.
you trust someone who's going to come into your home,
Yeah.
and they'll get the blinds done in a really quick period of time as well, and
Yeah.
you're going to get the best quality. But $5,000
Yeah.
giveaway.
Yeah, guys, enter. Go for it.
Yeah, got to be in it to win it. I love a comp.
Yeah, me too.
Hey, Michelle.
Hi.
Woohoo. Welcome to the back fence.
I am so excited to be here. I mean, I literally begged you to have me on. It was very sad.
Well, you've been like number one on the list from the very
Oh,
start.
look,
Come on.
you say that
Come
every
on.
Action
episode.
woman.
I don't.
Yeah.
We love action women. That's right up our alley.
Action women. And
Yeah.
so, you know,
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about...
Okay, my glasses are so foggy today. It might be
Because you're steaming up.
I think it's the wine.
Because I'm hot. It's because I'm hot.
Quite hot in here. I better cool down with a little Dr. V.
Okay.
Oh, nice segue.
Oh yeah, that's what we're drinking.
Yeah, Dr. V. So this means if I drink this, I'm going to be 10 years younger by the end.
Wrinkle
Absolutely.
free
Yeah,
by the
okay,
end
great.
of
Every
this.
episode
End
we're
of
getting
this
younger and
interview.
younger.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Okie dokie. We're about to interview an amazing woman. I met in the pool and I went all wrinkled because we talked for so many freaking hours. But I remember meeting Michelle and going to Nicola, because Nicola's known Michelle much longer than I have, and I just went, who's that amazing woman? Like, she's dynamic. And
Yeah.
she was like, on fire, babe, on fire. So that's a crazy intro. But the real intro is, I love this one. Here's a woman that her friends describe her as having 9 lives.
Yes.
Now,
Wow.
I thought that was really pertinent and spot on. I don't know the 9 lives. Listeners, we're all going to hear that one today, so stay tuned. Honestly, from acting to dancing to the Army Reserve to radio to television, podcasting, lecturing, mentoring. I mean, this woman is young. She's remarkable. From sharing news on the Nova radio network for the #1 national drive show with
Ricky Lee, Tim and Joel.
Lee.
all of the above, co-hosting the Killer podcast, which I loved. I listened to last night.
Oh, nice.
I Spied. Really unique angle.
Yep.
And as a woman who's never shy of putting her opinion forward, she can be seen on Today Extra, The Today Show, Weekend Today, doing that very thing.
Yeah.
So, honest to God, all I can say is to the listeners, let's all welcome Michelle.
Woo-hoo.
Hi.
Welcome to the back fence, Michelle.
I'm so happy to be here for a start. Always really weird as a journalist being interviewed because you always talk about other people's lives. You rarely talk about your life. So this is kind of one of those situations where I'm like feeling a little awkward. But I do have to say,
Good.
when I met you in the pool, I was like, this woman.
I met you in the pool.
No,
it was
this
a
woman-
bit of a party, wasn't it? A
I
Boxing
don't-
Day party.
And,
All
it's not, and I
party.
didn't Nicola that long either, because
Right.
I've known Richard
Yeah.
Wilkins for like like years because he works with Smooth and I'm at Nova and we're the same radio station. So I've seen him come and go. Also through Today and Today Extra and Weekend Today, I've kind of been around Richard.
That's right.
But I really only met both of you on Boxing Day. And
that's when it was, Boxing Day.
after we'd had a few too many drinks and
you
we're in
do.
the pool. And all I remember of Di is she's like,
Sorry, I've got the snorts.
she's standing.
So Jess Rowe going,
It was
haven't
one
you?
of those days.
And all I remember of Di is like she's standing in the pool and like the lamb starts going around and she's eating lamb and rinsing her hands off. in
Big
the
family
pool.
syndrome. Seriously.
Yeah, it was funny. See, I've already hijacked the podcast. You should go.
No,
Yeah,
but
no,
that's
This is what I do. This is what I do. Take over.
No, not at all. But
We
I
love
mean,
a hijacker.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I sort of want to get back to the early days, really, with Michelle,
Yeah.
because we are sort of fairly new friends, but you've
Yes.
made a big impact, and I've known you from afar, from
Yeah.
watching you on TV,
Yeah.
Miss Rumpies. But tell us from the beginning, are you a Sydney girl, or tell us a bit about yourself from the early days?
Okay, well, I mean, I was born in Sydney. I was born in Bankstown, but I kind of spent most of my years, my formative years, in Wagga Wagga and also Canberra. When my mother remarried, my stepfather was in the Air Force, so we moved around every 2 years. But look. Basically, I left home at 16. I moved myself to Canberra and put myself through the last 2 years of high school. So Canberra is kind of like where I felt at home because the education was really good there. The art scene was really big. I wanted to be an actor and a dancer. So that was kind of like my dream.
You're saying that the last 2 years you put yourself through
Yeah.
that. Is that right?
Yeah, so if we go back a little bit further than that, when my father passed away when I was 5. So I had
sorry.
look, it's fine. It's one of
Yes,
years ago. But
yeah.
which is also an interesting story. He was a bit of a con man and he was running from the police and he went to jump from one balcony to another and he fell. So he's like,
Wow.
Yeah, so I grew up in like this, and it was quite a turbulent household. He was quiet. He could be violent against my mother. Like it was quite. I grew up in kind of a little bit of a turbulence.
Is this in Wagga?
No,
Wagga
this
Wagga?
was in Sydney. And then when he passed away, my mum kind of didn't really have any money and didn't have anywhere to go. So we moved to Wagga because that's where her family was. And I remember Mum and I she got a 1-bedroom apartment and her and I slept in the same bed.
No other siblings?
Just me, just her and I. And then we got on the housing commission list and got a housing commission house. And then my mum went back to TAFE and became a secretary so she could afford to kind of pay for, rent and stuff like that. And so from 7, I was called what was known then as a latchkey kid, where you walk yourself home, you let yourself in, and you just wait for your mum to get home, which is so bizarre now because I have a child and I am such a helicopter parent.
Wow.
Like you need to know where they are at all times. But when I was a kid, like you did everything on your own.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I was kind of in Wagga for a while, and then she met my stepfather, who I just adore. Then we moved around a bit.
That was lucky that you adore the stepfather.
Well, I
Yeah.
didn't growing up because he was in
You
the
grew
Air
to love
Force.
him.
Yeah, because he was in the Air Force, he was uber strict. So like I had daily inspections. I had to be in bed at 8, lights out by 8:30.
goodness.
I couldn't have sleepovers. Like it was
Wow.
Oh, you poor
insane.
thing.
What a contrast from the world
crazy.
being the
From the
latchkey
bad,
kid.
naughty dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like in the
That-
road.
That's
Yeah.
interesting from Mama's Choice in Men. That's interesting. you say
Yeah.
She's
that.
gone the straighty
Yeah.
woman.
100%. And I think, and they ended up fighting a lot, and I could see that they weren't getting along because of me. So it was really difficult. Not that I was difficult, but it was just more they had different parenting styles, and of course that clashes. Any parents know, like you're always
But
going
that
to clash.
already says a lot about you with your early independence and your
absolutely.
courage to speak up and sort of be strong. So then here we are. Then at 16, you take yourself off to Canberra.
Yeah, so I come home from school one day and I'd had enough and I packed my bags and I left home, and I was in grade 11 in Wagga, and I lived with my cousin for a little while. And I got a part-time job at KFC. That was my first job.
Oh, go, go.
KFC. I didn't like Wagga. I didn't fit in there. So, we'd been at Canberra the previous year, and I really liked Canberra because it was more artsy. It's just more my vibe. So.
Yeah.
I just got a Greyhound bus ticket and got on and went back to Canberra.
There's got to be a book in this.
Oh, there absolutely does.
Seriously,
I mean, I'm
yeah,
even more in
yeah.
awe of you now.
Yeah,
You know,
me
like,
too.
you know, really.
I've just sat here just
Well, 'cause
dumbfounded,
it's
actually.
weird because when I look back,
Here we
I
go back to people's stories.
Yes.
Here we
100%.
go.
Yeah.
Be a storyteller.
Teller.
Well, and this is
love
part of the
this.
reason why I became a storyteller, I guess. But like, it's weird when I think back at. I just go, who the hell was I then? Like at 16, those were some big decisions. And I was lucky I had some really good teachers around me. So I applied for young homeless allowance. So my parents signed a stat dec saying I couldn't live with them. So I could get government support to continue to finish year 11 and 12. But I also had a part-time job. I saved up and got myself a car, like a little Datsun 120Y.
Oh, I'm already just so
proud.
proud of
I
you.
know.
I mean, really.
Medal.
Yeah, I know. Because just looking
Really.
at so many kids, you know, that are spoilt and you know,
Totally.
like
Yeah.
angry, you know,
Yeah.
And then here you
And
are
bored.
making it on
So
your
look
own.
at- yeah.
But also, you made the decision then at 16. You could have been 16 and just gone wild and crazy.
easily.
But you've
Yeah.
actually gone the
Easily
education
gone the
route.
other way.
Yes,
You know,
I
like-
did. And
What was your drive to
I don't
be
know.
A, independent, B, succeed, like, out of my way?
It's an interesting question because I've spoken a lot about this with my therapist, actually.
Yes,
I
yeah.
highly recommend therapy. You did a full year
We
of
all
We're
do.
fans of
We all
therapy.
do.
We
like
love it.
therapy
For life.
For life, yeah. Because when I look at my family, out of my family, I'm the only one to have a degree, let alone I have a master's as well, but also rare for any of them to even graduate high school. So I quite often go, what was it in me? Because it's that whole thing, nature over nurture. So what is that? And yeah, I couldn't even tell you. I couldn't tell you what it would be. But I think there was something inherent in me that just knew I had to keep going and I had to get out.
No doubt. And the other thing is you started university. You know, a lot of people go, oh, you know, I don't know what I'm going to do, or, you know, I'm in mid-20s. Well, I guess that's it. I've got to be a whatever they're doing right now.
Yeah.
Where this drive that we're focusing on with you now.
Yeah.
At 30, you decide to go and do university, do your degree.
Well, that was my
Or
second
degree.
So
Yeah.
basically when I finished high school,
Yep.
I didn't know what I was going to do. So I kind of took a year off, but I wanted to be a dancer. I studied ballet and contemporary dance. So I got accepted into Bartuccio's in Melbourne. I
This
don't
is
know if
part
any
of the 9 lives,
Yeah,
by
I
the
know.
way.
Yes.
This is
Listeners,
where we go.
we're going to break this down.
I know. How long do you have? This might be a full
I
part.
know, it's just dreamy. Like
I want to hear it all. Keep
Yeah,
going. I'm
we're
just
loving it.
intrigued.
Well, when I was 18, I have to get the Army Reserve in there. So when I was
Yes.
18, in between like the end of high school and the beginning of my dance career, I took a year off. I moved to Newcastle and I joined the Army Reserve. I was in Signals. I was Private Stevo. I learnt Morse code. I was the only female in the Army Reserve.
Really?
Yeah.
you.
At that point, it was hard.
Incredible.
It was hard to get into the Army Reserve.
You didn't
It's-
move to Newcastle to go into the Army
No,
Reserve.
my parents had moved to Newcastle. My stepdad was stationed at Williamtown. And
right.
my stepdad had gone from when I left home, never darkened my door again, to when I graduated year 12, he showed up to my graduation proud as, just going, I think for him, he goes, you had the option to not finish and you did, and he was super proud of that. And so ever since then, I think I proved to him that I wasn't going to take the easy way out. So ever since then, he's always been supportive. So he was like, you know what, you can go to university and I'll help pay for it. And so he was always like super helpful.
Came
Wonderful
good.
man, yeah.
And was
Yeah.
that going into the Army Reserve a little bit of a sort of kudos to him?
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
question, actually.
No, yeah. I think
Yeah.
because I was kind
Take
of
your hats off.
I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and part of me was like, I thought about joining the Navy, doing the officers course, and you could be a photographer or whatever. So there were things that I thought about. I mean, I did grow up a RAF brat, so I did kind of have
Yeah,
this
it
in the
was
back
hovering,
of
yeah.
But I always wanted to be a dancer. I'd done ballet and contemporary growing up, and so I got accepted into Bartuccio's, Tony Bartuccio, which I think only people in the 80s would remember Tony Bartuccio.
Hello,
points at me.
I'm a Melbourne girl too, you know.
Yes.
knows my age, I love it.
So I was in Paran.
And I'll tell you what,
Totally.
Michelle's got the longest legs I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, that's true.
really.
And she does have a
which
dancer's body.
which is
Yeah.
not great for ballet. Like I'm very tall for ballet.
True.
So like it was kind of hard.
So I'm not
Contemporary.
taking you back. Did you dance during the week in Army Reserve on the weekend, or were they two separate things?
No, I did both. Yeah.
Are you kidding? So
No,
you
I was
literally were boots
dancing.
and all.
Yeah.
And then did dance shoes during the week.
Yeah.
Wow,
you
what a
are.
life.
I know. I kind of joined a contemporary dance company for like 6 months and then had the opportunity to go to England. So I went to England to stay with my cousin and I was there for like 6 months and then I realized how depressing it was because it's so cold and it gets dark at 3. So while I was over in England, I decided I wanted to be an actor. So then I applied for Nepean, which
And the
is...
beat goes on.
Yeah.
Life number 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Tick.
So I auditioned for University of Western Sydney, which is Don Haney went there. Some really amazing actors came from there. And I got accepted. So I did University of Western Sydney.
And studying.
Theatre.
Wow.
So a Bachelor of Arts in Performance. So while I was there, I met a Canadian who I fell in love with. His name was Rastik Kolasar. And we started dating and I ended up moving to Canada and marrying him at 24.
Oh, Michelle.
Wow.
Gosh.
Yeah.
And
so
did your family go across for that? Your
No,
mum?
but I
Oh,
didn't
was it
really,
different?
because I wasn't really close with my family. I had my mum and I had my stepdad, but like,
doing your thing.
I was just always doing my
Yeah.
thing. I
In
was kind of
love.
like transient.
Yeah.
So you two came back to Australia, the two of you.
Well, no, so
No.
I moved to Canada. I was there
Yeah.
for 8 years.
With
And-
him?
Yeah, with
Yeah.
him. And I worked as a professional actor over there. So I did quite a few.
So what were you in?
Like a lot of television commercials.
Yes, yeah.
Did a lot of extra work and stand-in work. So I was Joan Cusack stand-in for a movie.
yeah.
So I'd be on the set with like Robert De Niro and stuff like that
Oh.
because I was part of the union, which meant I got paid. really
Are you feeling flawed again? I'm still flawed.
And did you do that? You probably had the Canadian accent too, did
Yes,
you? Get to
so
learn
I-
quickly.
Do a bit for us.
Oh,
Come
I don't
on.
like
Come
no,
on.
no doubt we're out and about. No, I feel like everyone does that.
And was your husband in the theatre as
No,
well?
he
or-
was a teacher. He taught at a blind school.
Oh,
Yeah, I know. He was a good guy. We ended up getting divorced.
okay. Right, okay.
But no
We've
children
got the divorce
then,
happening
but
here.
it's
okay.
all life experiences.
No,
So that
no,
was
no.
lucky in that sense
yes.
because he was Canadian
Well,
based in Canada.
And lucky because she brought
Yeah.
us back to Australia.
Well, because I
So-
think originally he was going to come to Australia and then he decided he didn't want to. And I didn't want to live the rest of my life in Canada because it's fucking cold.
Yeah, it would
we
be
go, I love
too.
that.
Yeah,
Liverpool,
exactly.
Canada, I'm out,
I know.
I'm
Let's
out.
come back to sunny
Give me in a
Sydney.
sauna. I
I
love
know.
that.
We're talking like minus 30
Yeah.
with wind chill. Like it's not like
Okay.
cold. It's fucking cold.
Yeah.
Fucking
And were you in the
freezing.
news over there too? Were you doing news
No.
reading or anything over there?
Well,
or
I ended up getting a job on a community news station. So I ended up doing local news content. And in that, I ended up interviewing and doing all that kind of stuff. And that's when I realized that I like asking people about their stories and I like storytelling. But I didn't have any formal education in it. I also used to hang out with, once I got separated, I kind of moved to Toronto and I stayed there for an extra year because I was still working as an actor and I feel like I had to just
But
close
by
the
yourself.
chapter.
So
yeah.
who am I? What am
Yeah.
I? Where am I going? Sort
so
of.
independent your whole life.
Yeah,
really,
Yeah.
haven't you?
remarkable.
I know.
So how old were you when you came back to Australia?
I was 29.
Okay.
Yeah, I was 29. So my and I remember-
Deciding what to do, you arrived back.
I
going,
arrived back and knew no
Where
one.
am I?
I knew, yeah, basically. I was
Yeah.
in Sydney. I moved into a hostel in King's Cross
Wow.
and didn't know a single soul because I'd been gone for so long.
Yeah.
So I got a job in a bar, which was really well known in the Cross at the time called Barron's. It was super well
remember
known.
Barron's.
Yeah, it was open till 7 a.m.
Oh, why do I
Like-
know that?
Yeah, haven't you know, Di?
And
But you
I...
were
That's
shy
where I
girl,
met
Di.
you before.
Yes, I was the bitch serving people. I would kick people out all the time.
I
love it.
bet.
You could tell it was going to be a big night in there, and you needed extra security when the Bundy rum was going down quite
Right.
quickly. You're like, we've gone through 2 bottles of Bundy rum. We need extra security.
Always
Yeah,
a sign,
it's
isn't
all-
it?
always
Interesting.
a sign.
What did I used to drink? Rum and coke.
I used to have masala and Diet Coke.
Stop.
Yep, and used to sneak it out as a teenager. Put it
What
in
does
a
masala taste like?
in
I
a
can't
tab
remember.
bottle.
Masala,
you know,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
masala.
What
It was
was
like
it
a
like?
sweet, you know.
Masala
And
and
Diet
Diet
Coke. And I used
Yeah.
to say to my dad, off to a party. He said, you're a good girl. You've got your drink with you. Like Coke with you.
And then she's
Coca-Cola.
falling back into the car and he's saying to her, oh, darling, have you got a bug? And she, yes, it's a tummy bug. You know, her
I know.
My father, who had 5 daughters, he caught me one morning coming through a window.
Yeah.
Like one leg out, one leg in, and me going, oh, and I thought, I don't have an excuse for this. And he just went, darling, just don't do it again. And I'm going,
Okay.
Little did he know I had two sisters on the same pathway that hadn't come through the window yet. So, but going through the window, going
heads yet.
no,
Who
no.
could keep up with you?
I don't even know what he was there for either. But he said nothing the next day to Mum. Mum would have lost the plot. But we did it quite a bit.
Oh, yeah,
God,
always.
back then in those days, I think we were naughtier in a weirdo
Yeah,
way.
but
in a nice way.
But
Like,
we
I
weren't
don't
going
know.
out and really drinking. I was
No,
going
fun.
out and we were like,
I was going to the bus stop.
yeah, we were just
To
hanging
smoke
out.
a cigarette.
So did you then do a journalism degree? So you put
Yeah.
yourself back into
Well,
uni?
back
So
to
I
being
came- I
coming
came-
to 30.
Just, I'm just in awe. I can't.
Me
go over
too.
this.
I'm loving. I feel
It's
like
a
I'm having
lot.
a coffee with
Yeah,
Michelle
I know.
right
It's a
now.
lot.
Actually, a vodka tonic. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Vodka tonic. With collagen.
Exactly,
Yeah,
with
the
collagen.
collagen,
That's
yeah,
right.
without
Look at
Dr.
that
V's.
skin, forever young.
So I was living in a hostel, and then I got a studio apartment, and I had no furniture. I had to not drink because I was living on my own. I didn't have any friends, and I found that if I drank, I got real depressed and cried a lot because you're just like, what am I doing? I'm
Good
back home, I've got
awareness,
no
though.
friends. Yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah.
For that age, like
Yeah.
and what she's been through, it's wonderful.
Well, I mean, I've done lots of other things.
You'll never
we
learn,
not tell
exactly.
So I remember my stepdad came and visited me, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I don't know." He goes, "You should go back to university. Think about what it is you want to do, and I'll pay for it."
Wow, he comes
love
good.
him.
Yeah, the chips are down.
I
doesn't
know.
he?
He's a good
Yes,
guy. He's a very
yeah.
good guy.
Good egg.
And so I thought about it, and I was like, I really like politics. Like politics was always my thing, and history and philosophy and stuff like that. So I ended up doing a degree at UNSW in politics. It was a BA in arts, but majoring in politics and international relations.
As you do.
As you do. And when I was done that, I wanted to be a journalist, so I got my master's in journalism at UTS.
Really,
so,
congratulations
Yeah.
for that. 'Cause
And that's a big
that's
call.
a huge thing
Yes.
to do that. You know?
Well,
Yeah.
while I was doing it, I was also working 35 hours as a waitress, and I was interning at Channel 7, and you're doing everything you can.
But that's a good life lesson, really, of just doing it on your own there, or just, and keeping on trying one
Yeah.
thing after another,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
taking on lots of jobs and just keeping on going, which
Yeah.
you've done.
Yeah.
And through all of that, it was the last thing I expected Michelle to say was, "Oh no, I was fascinated in politics." I'm like, "What?"
Well, so
It's like
the politics
left
stuff
field.
was because when I spent a year in Toronto kind of working out what I was doing, I ended up talking to a lot of really interesting people, really learning a lot about their lives and history and the political climate and what was going on. And I realized that I was fascinated in it.
Yes.
So
Brilliant.
I think, look, drugs, I'm going to say, are a conduit. If they're used correctly, they can be a conduit into self-discovery. You just got to be careful.
And there's levels of drugs too.
Yeah.
You know, like in a lot of states in America, marijuana's legal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
and the mushrooms, like
That's
I
right.
haven't done that.
mushrooms.
I thought, no.
See, in
Never.
therapy, it's really big. Like,
Yeah, I've been reading about it a
so
lot lately.
really big. Like my therapist
Did you
talks
ever
a
do
lot about
mushrooms
it.
in the old days?
No, but I'm very open to it.
Yeah.
As the right
Yeah.
situation.
I mean, in Canada, mushrooms are massive in Canada because they've got the climate for it. So I did a lot of mushrooms, and they were a lot of fun. But now, if I take them, it's more of specifically if you're doing some really good inner child work, like therapy work. Like mushrooms are really good for you to kind of do that work internally. But you have to be in the right space and understand
So
how
it
to
frightens
work it.
me.
Yeah, but
Well,
you,
you
Is
know,
it because
you
I'm
you're
a
in
don't
the right
control
safe
freak?
environment.
No,
Why is
it's
that?
like
Why do you
I think it's not really. You never feel out of control with it because you can control the narrative. Like you're not going to spin out of control too much. Also, you just microdose. You don't really need to.
And it seems to be they're using it way more
Yes,
for medicine,
microdose.
Yeah,
therapy,
for depression
yeah.
and
which is
Even MDMA. I mean, MDMA and the mushrooms have been approved in this country by the TGA as a form of therapy. Like you can prescribe it as a
And
form
what
of
does your
therapy.
therapist think about that too? Is it, do you discuss
Yeah, I
it?
think, well, he's a big proponent of psychedelics, like anything that, because there is a lot of research has been done into how it can help you tap into like kind of that inner child work and working on yourself and that trauma as well and letting go of trauma. MDMA specifically they've used it on people who have come back from war, like anyone with PTSD, like anything kind of like that.
How wonderful when it's used for the right thing that way.
Look,
It's wonderful.
what do I say? God's pharmacy. That's what anything in nature.
Yeah.
It's there for a reason. And now that, in a medical setting, to be able to use it, it's actually, particularly for things like depression, they're saying it does something with the synapses in the
Yes,
brain.
it does.
So tell us about the world of then media, how you actually got into Sydney big time.
So you finished studying.
Yeah, so I finished studying
First job? Out?
It was hard to get a job. I was waitressing at the time. I was at Icebergs working in fine dining. I wanted to stick forks in my eyes because people are actual assholes. Especially people with money. Oh, they're like...
My serviette's not folded 4 ways.
Oh my
Hers
God.
is.
I tell you, 2 people who tip really well. Singo, really well.
Oh, that's my
Yes.
brother's good friend.
Yep. And,
Beautiful human.
Yes.
And oh my gosh, my Russell Crowe story. When I worked...
Okay,
That's
well,
my
Russell.
brother's good. How weird. Russell.
Yes.
Singer, my
He
brother's
because I used to work at Kingsley's, which is at the end of Woolloomooloo
This is
Wharf.
hearing juicy goss, guys.
Yeah.
Oh, we love
This
a
is
bit of
from the
goss.
horse's
Exactly.
mouth.
This was a good story.
Giddy up.
I used to work at Kingsley's, which is at the end of Woolloomooloo Wharf. Russell Crowe used to live there. And so he used to come in all the time for a steak. And he was great. Like he would just have a steak and a glass of wine and he'd tip you $100. He was that guy. But I remember like he came in, he brought a whole group of friends and he ordered like a $500 bottle of wine. And I said, would you like me to decant it? He goes, nah, open it up like a cheap hooker and leave it on the table. And I was like, that is the most Russell Crowe story ever.
That is gold, isn't it?
He's a good human. I know a lot of people that personally that he has helped, and I just think, when you're that famous, sometimes fame eats them alive.
Yeah.
Very
he's
generous
really
people.
heart-centered.
And sometimes things
And-
that they don't, you don't even know that they donate.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And don't blab about it.
Yeah.
I've done this and I've done that. Really? Just do it from here and forget about that.
So
But-
then the TV world.
Yeah, so before...
so you're waitressing.
This was a pinnacle point,
Yeah.
meeting my husband. I met my husband, he was a DJ in a club at the time in King's Cross. First time I met him, didn't like him. He had a girlfriend he was with for 9 years. And little did I know that we hung out all night that night. He went home and broke up with her. Anyway,
After 9
Impressive.
years.
after 9 years.
Go
yes.
girl.
I know. I mean, that's how good my chat is. So anyway, the next time I saw him, we were getting along really well, and I said, "Look, you've just come out of a new relationship. You need to go find yourself. You need to date people." And I knew in my heart that he was meant to be for me. I just knew, and I had ended up kind of dating this guy, not really, who wasn't a good guy. And he ended up one night losing the plot, and I didn't know what had happened, but next thing I knew, I had a knife to my throat and my neighbours had called the cops. So the cops had shown up.
Because you were screaming?
Yes, of course. Like I was screaming, like
Right.
he was hitting me and stuff like that. And the cops had shown up, and they walked in, and they arrested him. They took me to King's Cross Police Station, and I spent the night there. And I was with this amazing police officer. I don't remember her name, but she sat with me, and she just talked with me, and she goes, "What are you doing? Why are you with these kind of people? You are amazing. You're at university."
Police.
How wonderful.
I have such respect for what
life
they do.
number 25.
And it's
Really?
You know what? And it's what we've always said,
Yeah.
it's the power of that one person
Yes.
Spot
to
on.
take that time and to listen to you and talk to you.
Oh my God, and a pivotal
She was-
change in your life.
Yeah, and
So
she was so
true,
good because
Nicola.
I was hanging out with the wrong people. And I was living in King's Cross. I was partying. I was still at university, but I was not hanging out because there's that whole thing about like you are the people you hang out with.
It's true.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yes.
You really are. And
Yeah.
while I was there, they were getting, the paperwork so they could search my studio apartment. And they were ripping it up because he'd been staying with me. And so they said, "Do you want to stay for this?" And I said, "No, I don't want to stay for this." So I left and I went and hung out with one of my friends, and I had a black eye and I had a black cap. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go to this tonic that I used to hang out with. And I walked in, and sitting at the end of the bar was my current husband in the same black cap. And I
I've gone
walked
from book to movie now.
Oh, I know.
It's a movie, and
I've
I
gone
mean it.
to goosebumps all over.
This is now a movie.
Like,
I'm watching the movie.
And I
Really?
walked up to him and I said, I really needed to see you. And he goes, I was going to call you tomorrow. I was just speaking about you to my therapist.
See the universe.
I went home with him that night and I
Never left.
never left.
oh, he loved
Because
you. And
How
you
many?
needed
I've got.
it,
Have you
and-
got triple goosebumps?
Michelle.
I went home the next day.
The
and
timing.
My place was. If you've ever had police do a search in your home, that shit ain't going back. Like they rip that place apart. And I just walked in and I went, I have to move.
How do you, when the odds are all stacked against you, how do you rise above it? Every time I've witnessed these stories, and you rise above it. Where's that come from? You're
don't know.
blowing me away.
I don't know. I don't know. Which is also, it's also why, like, I'm
You
a
don't
big-
know.
I don't know where it comes from. I just always just keep, it's constant momentum. Just always moving forward.
It happens,
And
but
I
I
don't
move forward.
dwell on things. I've never really been a
Don't
victim.
dwell.
I think that's probably
I've
the
never been-
key.
see,
I've never
You're
been a
right,
victim.
You don't dwell on it, and you're right, and you never become the victim.
No.
Because this doesn't suit me, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Because it's constant. I'm hearing your life story.
Yeah.
And like when you just said, I need to move from here, I've got to get out of
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Like,
and I think
that's
life-
a lot.
That's a kind of a good tip, if you can sort of say so too. Of as I suppose it takes time, but when you're sitting and dwelling in it and going back and forth, it really doesn't serve you. Once you've sort of acknowledged it,
Yeah.
you've got to move forward, and you've
Yes.
just had your whole life doing that. It's
Yes.
incredible.
And then I think
Inner
when
strength.
Inner strength.
it is an inner strength, I don't know where
Grab
it
it
comes
by the
from.
ball.
And then you had the
balls,
support of a
literally.
beautiful, loving man,
yeah.
and a decent man. So
Yeah.
tell
He's
us
like an
about
angel.
So now,
that.
yeah,
Just
I know.
emerged.
so we were together, and then I ended up getting a job, my first journalism job in Newcastle.
See it all happen.
Yeah,
Yep.
and
What a transition.
I went to Newcastle and I lived in a hostel, thinking I'm only going to be here for 6 months, and then I'll get back to Sydney.
Yeah.
And then I was there for a year, but I ended up getting pregnant, and Ethan was still living and working in Sydney.
What is it about Newcastle? I used to have a TV show in Newcastle. Remember I got pregnant?
Oh,
That's
really?
right,
Something in the
yes.
water there.
We got knocked up after the Newcastle races.
That'll do it to you. I told you, giddy up.
That is really funny.
Yeah. Well, so my son's name,
That's
Bae.
hysterical.
His name is Bae, B-A-E.
I love
Yeah.
that.
And so Bae in Vietnamese means inspiration, and Vietnam was the first overseas holiday my husband and I took together, and he asked me to move in with him there. And then Bae in Welsh means by the sea, so we live in Bondi and we lived in Newcastle. And Bae is a kind of horse, and we got knocked up after the Newcastle races. So like,
God, a lot of thought went into that
I reckon
name.
you're not on your own. I think after the races, I
Wow.
think this happens to probably a few different people.
I know.
But isn't that a beautiful change? Oh, you got knocked up after the races.
I mean,
love it.
I'm still an inner bogan.
So how old's Bay now?
Bae is 10.
Oh,
Wow.
beautiful.
11.
So when he says, tell us, Mum, about,
Oh, yeah, we
the
told.
night-
We told,
He must love it.
So
What's
I-
it like being a mum? Tell us about what
I
it's
would
like
have
to
to
be
say,
a mum.
so this whole, to tie this whole like constant
Yeah.
momentum in, I think the biggest struggle I had was stopping and standing still.
Right.
Because I was always able to just pick up and go. This is the longest I've lived in a place. The longest I've had people in my life. So I've had my partner and I have been together for 16 years now, 17
Wow.
years. Yeah, and my son is, I never thought I wanted children.
Okay.
And it freaked me out. But it was, for my husband, it was like, it has
Didn't
to
think
happen.
you wanted them or just didn't think about having children?
Didn't think about it.
Yeah, well,
Because-
I never thought about having kids.
No, and then it
But
happened.
It's the greatest
See, I
thing that ever
did.
happened
Oh my
to
God.
me.
I did.
See,
You
I
know, I
never-
knew-
Some
I
people
knew.
have it that they want
I
to have
think
children.
I was very career-oriented and hence had the career of my
Yes,
dreams
yes.
till now.
Yeah.
But I felt pregnant doing that and I went, wow, this
Yeah.
is new, exciting. Maybe because I brought up a lot of the other kids in the family, as in,
Yeah.
you know, had to change
Maybe
nappies
one of
and do
8.
that.
I don't know. You're
Yeah.
surrounded by so
Maybe
Oh,
many.
you're
that.
surrounded,
I
yeah.
always
I'm
knew, and I
thinking-
always sort of knew, even with
Yeah.
the partner who I would choose or would choose me or would choose each other together, if they didn't want children, it probably wouldn't have worked because it was always
Yeah.
high up on my list. Not that I ever wanted them when I was really young.
Yeah.
No.
I was late 20s, but it was sort of something I always wanted to do.
I've actually never, I've known Nicola for 40
Yeah.
years. I actually never knew that about Nicola.
Really, but
See?
I have some
Storytelling.
friends. It's so
Storytelling, yeah.
true. I have some friends who like they children is just part of their narrative. Like they want to have kids
Yes.
and they have like a couple, whereas like I'm the one and done. But like
I've never heard that.
well, it's the one and done club. There's a lot of us in Bondi.
That's
It's
incredible.
quite good.
Cool.
Yeah. But I was also older when I got pregnant, so it would have.
What are we talking?
I was 38 when I got pregnant.
Okay, wow. My
Yeah.
sister was 40.
Yeah, I was not prepared
What is age?
for the way motherhood would profoundly change me.
Wow. Okay.
I
That's
like
your question.
yeah,
here.
that's really
because
interesting.
I was
In what ways?
I was not. I'm not a narcissist. I was self-centered, of course, because like I was an only child and I always had to take care of myself. But all of a sudden, it was the first time in my life that I was truly scared because there was this person that I unconditionally loved, and I have this fear that something's going to happen to him all the time. And I think it doesn't help that I work in journalism.
Hence the helicopter parent, as you said.
Well, I mean, I always think bad things are going to happen because I work in news. So it's like that is because I always see bad things happening to
fear-mongering.
children.
And I think maybe would it be correct saying with your past too, because
Yes,
you've experienced
yes.
so much of that.
So much that
Because
can
when my
happen.
dad died and the way he died, he was there one minute and not there the next. I think I have a real fear of that kind of loss.
But how's Bay turned out knowing that he's got a mum that's pretty hands-on like that?
Well, I'm not super hands-on. Like I am because I'm out a lot. Basically, my husband's home all the time. I'm out doing
But
things.
you worry. Are you fearful for him? I'm worried.
I don't let him know that.
No.
I think how I internalize it is I'm constantly telling him how much I love him.
It's beautiful.
Because, like-
lucky boy. and
Because
that's
I
beautiful.
Great.
I didn't grow up being told how much my mum loves me. So I'm always telling him how much I love him and touching him and hugging him and luckily I have a
What could
boy.
a child want,
I
really?
know.
But
I
luckily I have a
know.
boy
It's
too
number
because
one,
boys
yes.
love it. They love that.
No, I
they
think
love
that's
it.
exquisite. We're both mums
We've
of
got
boys.
mums of boys.
Yeah.
We love our boys.
Yeah.
You've got a sort
Yeah.
of extra sort
There's
soft
something.
spot, isn't
And
it?
you and I have discussed
we
this.
have.
We become extra protective,
You
don't
do.
we?
You do.
Of
You
boys.
do.
There's
Because you know
something-
there's that real vulnerable side to
yeah,
them.
it's really
Yeah, totally.
interesting. We're both the same like that.
Yeah.
And no doubt that you are too.
Yeah, and I think having a boy was good for me because I think with children you get given what you missed in your childhood growing up. Like I didn't have a male
interesting.
presence. So all of a sudden I had this male energy
Wow.
that I could nurture. And I think that being in a cycle of abuse from previous boyfriends as well, I realized that one of the most important things that I could do is create or help nurture a good man, because I think good men and good boys are intrinsic to society and particularly Australian society.
Oh, here. Michelle,
Yeah.
this
Beautiful.
is
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
beautiful.
Because we have a real issue with violence against women in this country, and we need to look at it from a grassroots level and work out where that is coming from.
Yeah.
And I think we can start by being good parents.
And telling them how much you love
Oh
them.
my God, all the time. You've got to
Absolutely.
let them know they're
Reassuring.
loved.
And did your mum come to the party and
I was wondering
love
that.
him
Funny
and
you asked that.
Isn't it funny?
I've been wondering all the way
Yes.
through. So it's a great
My-
question.
Yeah.
Like you have a baby. Where's mum?
Yeah, so my mum and my relationship's really
And
interesting.
dad. It was a stepdad.
My stepdad and I are super close.
Okay.
Still to this
So
day.
he came
Super-
and when you're at the
He-
hospital, baby, all of that sort of going on.
I mean, no, I don't really have that relationship with my family. It's weird. It's like a friendship, not like a.
That's cool.
So that's the therapy stuff, right? I had to learn how to be vulnerable. So basically, my therapist said to me, he goes, Michelle, with your background, you either come out of where you came out of dead or fighting, and you're still fighting. So you need to stop fighting. So I had to work.
Wow, I have to actually sit with that for a minute. Dead or fighting.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's answering a little
That's
bit of
huge.
the drive.
Yeah.
Too, you know, that
Oh,
inner.
that just hit me like
inner
that.
survival.
Yeah.
You know,
Dead.
instinct there.
Oh,
and
yeah.
kind of like you're on the run a bit.
I actually
weren't
got
you?
very
You know?
emotional with that then.
Well,
No, really, it hit me like a ton of bricks.
it is the. I'm trying not to cry. So
No,
don't
that
cry.
doesn't. Well,
And
I've
thank
got
you for
it.
being
I'm not
so
you, and
open.
I'm feeling
Really,
like,
it's
wow.
important.
thank you for being so open. You know, it's really really is kind of rare to get people just to talk like this, and it's
Yeah.
just it's so helpful for so many people.
Well, I think also like therapy was a few things happened. I lost a very important person in my life last year, Glenn Daniel. He was like my mentor. He's kind of like the king of radio. He
Yes,
was,
I'm sorry about
you,
that too.
And
I
you
knew
knew
him.
Glenn.
Yes.
And
that was very sad.
That devastated me, like really devastated me. And so I needed to go to therapy. I was like, and I knew that I was struggling for connection with my husband, and I was worried that struggle with connection, because I can be quite closed off, would affect my relationship with my son. Even though I can be loving, I'm not always as open. Whereas my husband has this vulnerability and this ability to, just be always happy, and whereas I'm
And he's
not
so
like
good
that.
looking too. You've seen, oh, jeez. I mean, wow.
But that sounds like a little bit of opposites attract.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, in the beginning we were the same, because we're both gregarious people. We both like to go out. But then he kind of shifted, and that's when we had a real issue in our relationship where, we almost separated. And that was when we started going to couples therapy. He kind of fell for a friend of mine. They had an inappropriate relationship, and I found out about it. He won't mind me talking about this. We talk about this all the time.
Yeah.
Because I think one of the things
That's
that
what I love most about you, so authentic.
I
well,
know.
I think what people don't
And
do.
you're not alone.
Not
you know.
afraid
to
Listening
confront it.
this too. That
It's
happens
so
to
true,
so many
Nicola.
people.
I know, and I think that's why we're so open and honest about it, because I think people like to position their relationships as perfect.
Yes.
And you know what? It's fucking hard work. Like you can't
Did you
be with
both
someone.
own that, or did?
Yes.
Like, I know that's a
this
crazy
is-
question.
No, this is
and I
what-
am asking you. Okay, I'm not condoning anything.
No,
but-
and this is what happened was, and it was so interesting when I sat in the moment when I found out it had happened.
Yeah.
Instead of losing my shit on him, I went, how did I miss this? What was I doing that made me? And it was because I was going out and I wasn't paying
you
him
were both.
attention.
There was both.
I mean,
of you.
yes, I was mad at him,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I was also mad at myself because I wasn't giving him what he needed in the relationship, so he had to seek it elsewhere. And this is not blaming myself.
No.
I'm just taking
But
accountability
looking at the full picture.
for and I think a lot of my friends were surprised that I didn't lose my absolute shit. But I think when things are important to me, I internalize it instead of getting quite external.
Do you find that healthy, internalizing it though?
Well, internalize it as in I get self-reflective. So instead of immediately blaming other people, if it's a big thing,
So you
I
respond
go,
and not react.
And do you think ultimately it was maybe, even though you've gone through hell again, it was the best thing for your relationship?
Yes,
It cracked it open?
Fresh.
you might say?
100%.
We love that word, don't
so
we?
we call my husband and I talk about our relationship.
Very healthy.
That moment in our relationship, we call it the awakening. We don't call it cheating. We call it the
Yes.
awakening. And we're because we had a very clear defining moment where we could have easily walked away from this.
Well,
I
you could have
easily
said,
walked
F
away.
you, see ya.
For the rest of your life.
Yeah. And I had grounds to, but I was I'd lived a life. I've known what's out there.
And I think you put things into
Hold on, you
perspective.
lived 25 lives.
I know.
Not a life.
Not 9 lives.
It's
Times 9.
Yeah.
It's 81 lives.
Yeah.
I mean, jeez.
I knew that this was work. I knew that I wasn't going to meet anyone who got me. I knew the way he did and was supportive, and we'd been through things. And he was the father of my child, and he was a great father.
More power to you.
And I didn't.
know.
Like
And
that.
I didn't. I looked at that boy. He was I think he was 5 at the time, and I didn't want that boy to grow up in a separate household just because of my pride.
Your
Yes,
father. at a
yes.
time.
Yes,
Yeah.
but it would just be ego that would make me separate.
Ego, that's so true, because you could have also sat in that and forevermore, or you get back, but you're always going to chip away at him, go, but you did this,
Yeah.
you don't
I
bring
never-
that. And that's
Well, no
never
one
have.
wins with that. No
I-
one.
and I-
namely you. You
No,
don't.
and
No,
we
that's
and
it.
we
Just
did
taking
Yes.
all that negative energy on.
and we did couples therapy, and it really worked. And he found out that he was actually depressed, and so my husband went on
You
a.
didn't know beforehand.
He didn't realize
Wow.
that
No,
he
look
was
at that cracking open.
he was really
Incredible.
depressed, and so he stopped drinking for a year. He took up meditation. He's now this super athlete. So it was
Talk about
Yeah.
transition. black to white. That's
I think it's
great.
It's Superwoman here.
And
really,
in so many
absolutely
ways,
Superwoman.
It's
I mean,
like the problem is, I think I could probably sit in the studio and talk to Michelle.
I know. I feel like
I
I'd
know.
probably take
No,
up
no,
too
no.
much.
No, we've got a couple of signature questions, but before that, I think we just have to tell just a little bit more about working in radio,
Yeah,
TV,
yes.
podcasts.
Oh, yes.
There.
Yeah, what's your fave?
So, what's your fave out of
all
those
of them?
things?
I love radio. I always thought TV was going to be my jam, and I do love doing Sky News and Today's Show and giving an opinion. But I do love radio. I love talking into a microphone.
Is it because you can wear your jums?
Yes, 100%. You don't have to worry
No
about
makeup, no hair. Who cares
No,
what you
I
wear?
think there's something amazing about storytelling using just the voice. I enjoy my podcast, I Spied, which is with an ex-ASIO spy.
Incredible.
So
Right, and listening to your life, though, I almost understand why she's involved in that.
yes,
like
I
like
love it.
Sounds like
So
a
that,
bloody
and he's a
I Spy.
comedian as well. Like
He's a comedian as well,
He's
and
good
he's a lot of
value.
fun. Absolutely.
And the other thing we love about Michelle is when she does things like the Today Show and Today Extra, where she can be really literally tell a story, be bold, be courageous, and really speak
know,
your truth.
yeah.
You don't hear enough, I don't think,
No.
about women or men
I know.
speaking like that today.
I think that's part of your success. I mean, so much of it's success. But when I see you, say, just from a punter watching on TV, I love it because you do speak.
you're so cute.
But you speak the truth there, and then you might sort of say you be strong opinions, but then you'll have a cheeky laugh too.
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
it's sort of kind of fun. You've had a
true.
giggle in it.
Yeah.
Along
Yeah.
the way.
And just a quick question. I wrote down, funnily, look, I wrote down, what is I written down? I've got felt at home in Canberra. You've mentioned in this interview.
Yeah.
Now, my question to you is, because I also picked you studied politics.
Yeah.
What's ever a chance of going into politics?
Look, I never will say never. I am thinking about it.
Well, I think the world needs you.
Yeah.
We
we
vote
need you.
for Michelle. We've got the placard. Seriously.
Yeah.
We're Team Michelle. We're going to
Yeah.
put it
All
on
that
our-
yumminess of life skills. I think you'd make a brilliant
It is
politician.
definitely something that I'm thinking about and talking about.
Wow. Well,
So
as you said, there's the book, there's the movie, there's the screenplay.
Honest
there's
to
the politics,
God.
there's-
I got
you've got-
to write it all down before I
Oh,
forget it. My
wow.
mind's
Please.
starting to
Wow.
go.
No, it's not.
So now I think we're coming up to our little back fence questions. Do you want
Oh.
to shoot, Didy? What do you
Oh
think?
God, I don't know where she's going to go with this. I'm so
I know.
excited. Okay, if you had the opportunity to meet your 20-year-old self, what would you say to her?
It gets better. I think I didn't realize how good my life, I try not to cry,
Oh, don't.
would be because
Going
I
So beautiful.
I just never realized how amazing my life could actually be. Like I am so blessed. I've got a great partner. I've got good friends. I've got a career I love, and I've got a child I adore. So I think just know that it's going to be okay. That's all it is.
I know.
Well, Michelle, you know what? And what I get from that too is you're living with gratitude.
Oh, absolutely. Every day.
And that's every day, and
Yeah.
that's a huge thing.
After everything you've been
You
through,
could
to
live
come
in
back
bitterness.
around.
You could live as the victim.
Oh,
And
any
here
of
you are
those.
turning it around. And in life, hard times hits us when we least expect it sometimes,
Yeah.
at whatever age and stage you are. And you've turned it around.
And what I love most is you responding and not reacting, because
Yeah.
I think that's crucial with sort of your background. That's very healthy boundaries.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I see. Yeah,
In so many
congratulations.
ways.
So the
It
question
is-
is, if you could
Yeah.
share a back fence with anybody on planet Earth, who would it be and why?
So this one's a really hard one.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people I'd like to share a back fence with.
Well, you can have a few.
Shoot.
Madonna.
Oh, yeah.
Like
time
a
we get-
virgin.
Because Madonna was like, she embodied what it was to be a strong, powerful female when I was growing up.
True.
Do you know what I mean?
Very
Also,
true.
Like, she was singing about things in her way.
Absolutely, about lives.
She reconstructed what it was to be a sex symbol. She did it on her terms. She got naked on her terms. She did everything on her terms. I think she'd be great. I mean, I think she's a bit loopy now,
Yeah,
but that
she's
would also
gone
be a
little
bit.
that way.
I can forgive her for
That'd
that. I
be-
love those pointy cups, though.
Yeah. It was the external
Yeah.
underwear. Okay, who else?
Jon Stewart.
Oh,
wow.
yeah.
Jon Stewart, like the most amazing, incredible comedian, and I grew up I spent a lot of time when I lived overseas watching The Daily Show with Jon
Yes.
Stewart. He was amazing, and he still is incredible. He's just incredibly smart, incredibly funny. And I remember one of the most poignant moments with Jon Stewart was so I was living in Toronto when September 11 happened, and everything shut down. It was incredible after like the day of September 11. And he did a monologue, and if you haven't seen it, just go on YouTube and type in Jon Stewart monologue September 11, because he was a New Yorker. And he delivered this monologue on his show the day after September 11. And it just shows you how someone can really paint a picture of what it was like to have been an American, a New Yorker, and to have such an incredible atrocity happen in your city. And I don't know. I just thought ever since then it just moved me so much.
Okay, so he's going to share.
Yeah.
He'll share that story. Anyone else there? I think that's a good start.
I think that's a good start. I mean,
Nicola and I are there.
We're going to gate crash
Wow.
this thing too. I'll tell you
Seriously.
what
What a hoot.
But
What a day.
What I do want to say is I don't think I should go. I think I should share a back fence with you two, like really share a back fence, and we should have another ep where I
Let's do
interview
it.
you.
Let's do it. Hey, what a
Sounds
good idea.
great.
I want to get to know
Well,
you
I think we have to
guys.
be a couple of 2-part series then. What do you think of
Yes.
that idea?
Okay.
Part 1 and Part 2. Well, for this one, thank you so
Absolutely.
much
That was
for
amazing.
joining us at our back fence.
In
Truly,
so many ways.
you have blown us away. I mean, blown all the listeners
I think
away.
I've gone through the whole gamut of emotions with this interview.
Ups and
Oh,
downs.
I know. Oh, it's just it's the journey of life there.
Yeah.
And you've shared it there. So thank you so much.
Yeah,
It was my
amazing.
pleasure.
It was
Thank
incredible.
You everyone
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I'll hang around for next week.
Okay. Ciao.
Well, guys, we look forward to joining us at the back fence next Monday.
Yeah, so tell your friends, rate and review. How many stars do we want, Didi?
25, and even though it only says 4.
I think it says 4 or 5 stars. Because really, I'm just learning, but that's really the only way that community
Spread the
grows and
word.
spread the word.
Yeah,
So share
it's
the
true.
potty to friends,
Yeah, that's what it's all about.
and thank
to
you for
share it.
listening.
And look forward to chatting with you on Monday. Ciao.
Ciao, ciao. Bye bye.